Dante.
And we're reacting to a video by ABC News. It's called Gun Violence, an American Epidemic.
Well, guys, we're going to jump right into these videos.
America armed and dangerous.
There are now some 40 million handguns.
Firearm injuries represent an epidemic.
Epidemic of gun violence.
Join us in this campaign to reduce gun violence.
The only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun
Another mass shooting
is
in
a
America.
good guy with
Shooting
a gun.
rampage.
316 people are shot every single day.
Gun violence.
316 people are shot every single day.
And I actually wanted to say something about that. Like, that's an insane number to have. Like, if you actually go and Google the statistics for, like, each country, we're, like, leading by a long fucking shot of people who died by guns. Like, 316 people. Like, that is an insane number per day. Like, that's not a week, a month, maybe a year round. No, that's a day.
And this video was done, like they put this video out, I think about a year ago. And that number has probably gone up significantly. This year this just starting, like 2022, had like school shootings almost every, like a few a week.
Right. Like, we was having one indefinitely, like, every month going on. Like, we for sure had one, hearing about one almost every month, damn near. So, I don't know. I feel like it's getting out of hand, and at this point, we need to do something about it.
Gun violence. A topic that's deeply divisive in America. A country where guns are embedded in everyday life. As of 2018, it was estimated that there are approximately 400 million civilian-owned guns in America. That means there are more guns than there are people or cars in the U.S.
Why do we need that? Like, that's insane to know that. Like, why is this okay?
And not just regular guns are, like, legal. It's not just, like, little handguns or even hunting rifles, like...
Fully assault rifles, fully automatic guns that are completely legal. Like, why do you need a fully automatic gun? Like, for what? What in scenario that you're gonna need that gun? You know what I mean?
I feel like hunting rifles are the only thing that needs to be, like, legal for people that do hunt. Like, I feel like owning guns for that reason isn't a bad thing, but, like, it should be, like, one per household. There shouldn't be people just stacking up on guns. Like, that's ridiculous.
Right. I mean, me personally, even to the hunting situation, like, you still wouldn't even really need guns, like, depending on what it is that you're trying to hunt. Because, honestly, crossbows is just as good enough. It will do the job just as good, just as silent. You can retrieve your crossbow using less ammunition, you know what I mean? You're not scaring the other animals and stuff around you. I mean, I don't know. It seems more efficient to me.
Yeah, but, I mean, I feel like also, I mean, it's a different, like, type of hunting, I guess, with crossbows. Like, it's easier to kill a deer with a gun because it's a little bit more precise to kill with a gun instead of crossbow. Because wind does factor into shooting a gun. When it's kind of off topic. But wind does factor into when you're, like, bow hunting or crossbow hunting more than it does with a gun. And also, guns sometimes have more force, whereas it would be harder to have enough pullback, too.
I don't know. I feel like it's still a clean hit. You can still have the same, not, velocity as a bullet, but I would definitely say that, like, the strength behind each combat bow or regular, like, bow, like, you can do it in a clean cut way. You just have to get really good at it. I know there's easier ways to kill them with, like, bows and stuff like that, but at this day and age, like, why are you hunting for fucking food? Like, I mean, I understand, you want to be a part of the wilderness and go get your own food, and you don't want to go out and worry about groceries and stuff like that, but at the same time, it's like, in this day and age, it's like, it's time to put the hunting man down.
It would just be harder to shoot up a school with
a crossbow.
No, with just a hunting rifle in general. True. But, like, with a hunting rifle or something like that, like a big, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It'd be harder to smuggle that in somewhere to have a shooting as opposed to like a small handgun or a automatic.
That is facts. That is facts.
So even just eliminating those and just having hunting rifles as a thing, it would significantly cut down on the school shootings, I feel like. Or, you know.
By comparison, Americans own more guns per capita than any other country, accounting for about 40% of the world's total gun ownership. And that number is likely to increase.
So we have more guns than people in the world. The civilians and just, wow. I didn't even know all this.
Since 2008, the U.S. firearm industry's worth grew 232%. Making it a $63.5 billion industry in 2020. But the reason for division over gun ownership isn't just because the U.S. owns the most guns. It's because it also has the highest rate of mass shootings, gun-related homicides, and firearm suicides among similarly developed nations.
Our politics is just not being incentivized to pay attention to the things that would actually reduce gun violence.
This is the job of public health, to help the most vulnerable.
I feel like it would, if we were to get rid of guns, even though there is a black market for guns, and higher the stakes of like, especially like, you know, handguns and stuff like that, make it a whole lot more stricter. And even if people were to own guns and the people that do have guns, I feel like they would need to undergo like a psych evaluation every so often on like while they have a gun. Like people with full bipolar disorder, like crazy disorders, have a gun. Like you should be able to be mentally stable.
That's like the only way that I would be okay with us still having guns. If you had like these full-on, like thorough psychic evaluations on these people who are applying to have a gun, because you're applying to have something extra that someone else can't necessarily have, and to have that ability, you have to have the mindset to understand what it is, the responsibility now that you are taking on. So I definitely say if it's going to be like that, it has to be extremely thorough. I mean, like, thorough, to make sure that these people are mentally stable enough to have guns.
And I feel like if you are to purchase a gun, you also are required to purchase a safe to store the gun so that it is out of access to small children or anything that you need, because there are so many gun-related deaths involving children just getting the gun from like their parents laying around and leaving it, like, you know, out in the open.
Like even the picture right there, guns kill children. Like, I feel like nowadays it's like the average teen and adult aren't dying as much from guns as they are as compared to kids. I mean, it may not be exactly like that right now, but I feel like it eventually will get to that point. The way we're going currently, yes, it will get to that point.
To stand up for them.
So how did we get here? How has the right to own a gun become a divisive American ideal? And of all the proposed solutions, what do experts say could effectively reduce gun violence in the U.S.? Around the 19th century, there were at least 9 countries that had the right to bear arms in their constitution. But as years passed, most of these countries made changes revoking or limiting gun rights. As of 2021, only 3 countries cite the right to bear arms in their constitution.
As you can see, we're the only country that's still cool with it. The last country that's still cool with it like that.
Besides Mexico.
And they still running the guns. They're like, nah, we ain't giving it up just yet.
And the United States is one of them.
The Second Amendment activism was not at the center of early gun culture, and for a long time, most people in the US own guns, but it was really for hunting, target shooting. It was associated with masculinity, so it was kind of a rite of passage.
Right. It was for that time period. It was perfect for that time period, but we're no longer living in those times. I'm not gonna lie, we're in a better society now. I mean, not currently what we're doing, but our mindsets and the way we think now, it's a whole lot better than it was back then. If you met somebody from 100 years ago, the average person from nowadays meeting someone 100 years ago, they're gonna think that average person is the smartest person. You know what I mean? And this is just an average person. So, I mean, times have changed. It's time to let it go.
We're not in the 1800s anymore. It's not like we're gonna get like we're not like going to war with our muskets or whatever.
Right.
But it was not about rights and the law.
The idea of gun control didn't really enter the national conversation until 1934, following a mass shooting in Chicago. Most gun regulation laws were passed without much opposition until 1968, when President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Gun Control Act. But this started to change years later when the NRA became an advocacy organization centered on the Second Amendment, bringing with it a huge influx of money.
It really
The Second Amendment was made 200 years ago, in the 1700s. I feel like sometimes your ideals as a country need to change every,
100 years or so, we have a different mindset every 100 years,
Society is different.
We don't literally vibe the same. We don't move the same how we did 100 years ago, how we did in the 1700s, the 1800s, the 1900s, you know what I mean?
Like, that's what also the older generation needs to realize. We're a newer generation. We're evolving. It's not going to stay the same forever. That's how things grow, things change.
I mean, I feel like that's how we are as a human society, you know what I mean? We are humans. We constantly are evolving, you know what I mean? And as we as a society need to keep doing that, we need to stop holding back and holding on to these old traditions that worked for those people back then. They're no longer working for us nowadays. So it's time to let go of the past stuff that was working for them, and let's just move forward now.
changed after the Cincinnati Revolt in 1977 when there was a coup inside of the NRA. Second Amendment activists took the NRA over, and then in the 2000s it switched again to being a mostly Republican gun lobbying organization.
Nowadays, the NRA spends between $2 to $5 million annually lobbying for gun rights. And during the 2020 elections alone, the association spent $29 million in political campaigns.
And we believe...
And that's our government money going to simply a campaign. Our tax money. This is what they're doing with our tax money. $229 million of it to simply campaigning. Like, what?
I feel like you could put that money into
schools, like so much other things, but you spent all this money on something that's already still like active. You know what I mean?
Just so you can have some pum-pums.
Insane.
In freedom and liberty and the right to keep and bear arms.
In 1983, the CDC really started looking at gun violence as a public health problem when they created the Violence Epidemiology Branch.
The NRA looked at this and they said, if you do this research, it's going to end up in everyone losing their guns. It's either the research...
They knew it. He's saying it right there. He knew what it was. They already knew exactly what it was. They knew this shit's killing people, but they're making money off of it. Like they just said earlier, it was like a $6-something billion industry. You know what I mean? They're making billions of dollars off this. Of course, they're not going to shut it down no time soon.
Or your guns. You can't have both. You've got to decide. This was misinformation, but it was a powerful strategy for the NRA.
Eventually, Congress deferred.
It's the fact that they don't want to educate themselves on the situations that's going down, like, to that, oh yeah, if you actually look into this, yeah, it might get shut down. then maybe it should get checked
Maybe,
out.
maybe it should. Maybe we should really think about this, you know? It's like, come on. I don't understand America, to be honest.
Spurred funding for gun violence research by passing the Dickey Amendment in 1996, which prohibited the CDC from using federal funding to advocate or promote gun control. After its implementation, the CDC spent more than 20 years without resources to conduct significant research on gun violence.
It was a threat. It was a shot across the bow.
That had big impacts, particularly in the field of data collection. If you're getting your data collection done by, a private foundation or, some other source, you don't have what researchers have described to me as the full faith and credit of the US government behind it. That makes it easier if you have that full faith and credit to get agencies and get states on board and get that data collected.
The need for research was finally recognized shortly after the mass school shooting in Parkland, Florida, that left 17 dead in 2018. A clarification was made to the Dickey Amendment, allowing the CDC to conduct research on the causes of gun violence.
This research is going to find those ways that we can keep guns out of the hands of people who shouldn't have them without infringing on the rights of those people who should.
But in order to understand how we can...
I feel like that was just their way of coming in between with the shit, but I feel like they deep down they know they want to get rid of it, but they're like, okay, let's just minimize who can get guns.
And all the freaking rednecks and whatever are over here because they're doing research. They're trying to take our guns. Oh my god.
This is bettering us as a society, as a human race. We need this information. Are guns leading us to more causes and deaths? We need to know this research. We need these people to crack down and figure out that. What do you mean?
And most of the school shootings aren't coming from illegal weapons. They're getting them legally.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's actually a valid ass point, because if you think about it, if you go through and go back to all the school shootings and stuff like that, how many of those guns were illegal guns? They were illegally bought guns or, off the market type guns. They most likely wasn't. They were registered guns. And that's crazy to say that you can just go in your dad's closet, grab an AK, go to school and fire up the school. The ability to do that is insane.
Potentially reduce gun violence. Let's first dive into the numbers around it. The U.S. saw the peak of gun ownership in 1993, with an estimated 51% of households owning a gun. That same year, gun homicides also reached its peak.
When all you have is
right there, you should have just been okay, we need to chill out. Okay,
we need to look into this.
Yeah. Something's wrong. That's crazy. That should have been an instant. Okay, we need to hop on this right now. We need to nip this in the bud right now. But they just let it keep going because it was making too much money, I guess.
a hammer, everything looks like a nail. When you have easy access to guns and you have lots of guns available to you, more problems look like problems that can get solved with them. Mm-hmm. There very much is a correlation between the number of guns in a place and the number of gun deaths in a place. And that's something that you can see consistently across the board year after year.
How often do you hear about many school shootings in New York? Because they are really cracked down on their gun laws.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's certain states that have cracked down on gun laws, and it has gone down. So, and most of the school shootings seem to be more in the South or in, like, high gun, like, where there's, like, a higher percent of gun ownership in those states, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The places that have more guns have more gun deaths.
But if you look at just the...
Literally, she just said it. The places that have more guns have more gun deaths. Like, that, then and there, that information alone should have been enough to be like, okay, let's just stop handing out these guns. Let's just stop putting out guns out there. You know what I mean? Like, and people will say, like, oh, what about the cops and stuff like that? They don't need guns either. You can have tasers and the beanbag and the rock salt guns.
And I think the only reason a cop needs a gun is there's, like, dealing with those like drug cartel situations or like shit like that. But also, I mean, I feel like traffic cops also like they come across people that they're pulling over that also happen to have guns. I mean, sometimes I do understand cops need guns, but cops also need more training than what they actually do get.
I mean, I ain't gonna lie. Over there in England, the cops don't have guns. They just have batons and tasers.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I'm not gonna lie. In Russia and stuff like that, yeah, the regular police officers are walking around with fully assault rifles, so they don't play over there.
I mean, I feel like right now as a country we haven't evolved into that level to take guns away from the cops, but I feel like we have evolved into the level of at least cutting down on some of the gun ownership and being way more stricter than what we are, because I feel like that's what's affecting us really as a society right now.
Injuries and deaths, you're missing a very big part of the problem. For every individual life that's destroyed, there's a family that's destroyed. There's a community that's shattered. The cost of anxiety, of fear and worry is tremendous.
And while most gun owners cite safety and protection as their reason for owning a firearm, research shows that having a gun in your home doesn't necessarily keep you safer.
What we found...
Boom, right there, like... Every gun-loving person right there, research shows that it doesn't make you safer. So, I don't know what any valid argument you can give after that. There's actual facts showing that it doesn't make you safer. So, I don't know. I just love facts, so I stick with them.
Was that not only does having a gun in your home not make you safer, but it increases the risk that someone in your family will be killed by a gun, will be a victim of gun homicide. And it increases it hugely, not by 10, 15, 20, 25%, not by 100%, by 200%. The risk that someone in your family will be shot and killed with a gun.
I understand that there are going to be people who's going to be like, okay, but what about the times where guns have saved people? Like, yes, I give you that. I will give you that. That is a good moment and an inspirational moment. But at the same time, if he didn't have a gun, you wouldn't have a gun. So that whole situation wouldn't even be awry. You know what I mean? If a guy came in trying to rob with a knife, you know what I'm saying? You know, and if it's a group of us, I mean, we could probably overpower him. I'm not going to say do that, but, you know, you're less likely in danger with a guy with a knife versus a guy with a gun, you know what I mean? And even then, a guy with a knife, solely with a knife, would most likely not rob a store because he only has a knife.
Someone in your family will...
I mean, you can do a lot with a gun, but there's only so much you can really do with a knife.
Mm-hmm. Now, granted, you can do a lot of damage with a knife. You can genuinely kill someone with a knife. Don't get me wrong, having a knife is deadly, but you have more means of survival from a stab wound than from a gunshot wound.
Commit suicide with a gun goes up 400%. It's multiplied 5-fold.
And suicides make up the largest portion of firearm deaths.
2/3 of all gun deaths in America are suicides. And most of the people that are killing themselves with guns in the U.S. are older white men who are gun owners. Then you have another 1/3 that are homicides. When you're talking about the homicides, you're predominantly talking about younger black men. And when you talk about women being killed in homicides, you're predominantly talking about domestic violence.
When we shift to mass shootings, they only account for a small percentage of gun deaths each year. But they've also become more common and more deadly in recent years.
The politics of gun violence has, over the last couple decades, really centered around things like mass shootings, terrorism, accidental gun deaths in small children. But if you actually go and look at the data, again, what you find is that those are not making up the majority of gun violence deaths. They're not even making up a significant minority.
ABC News combined forces with the gun violence.
I wonder if we also crack down on them, how many how would our suicide rate go down?
True. Because I didn't even know that was like one of the leading causes of like gun deaths. I thought it was like, homicide. I mean, honestly, nowadays, every day you hear about somebody getting shot or dying from getting shot and stuff like that. So to hear that we're mostly dying from suicide is even sadder too. So yeah, that's even more reason to crack down on it. That's going to eliminate a huge portion, you know what I mean?
Archive to document a week's worth of gun violence and found that in a single week in July 2021, there were more than 1,000 incidents of gun violence across 47 states. That's about 1 every 10 minutes. And in those incidents, more than 400 people were killed. Despite the gap in federal research, limited data shows that implementation of certain gun regulations and laws have been effective at a state level. For example, in Indiana, the red flag law has been associated with a 7.5% reduction in firearm suicides a decade after it was implemented. Even other methods, like permit laws or ceasefire programs, have had some success in individual cities. But the research is mixed. One study found that states can reduce homicide rates just by implementing 3 laws.
Universal background checks are laws that prevent anyone with a criminal record from buying a weapon.
A criminal record, but we also need to see about that mental records though. Like,
Right. Having a criminal record isn't enough.
Like, I feel like if somebody was hospitalized for trying to commit suicide, they should not be able to own a gun. Like, that would just increase the chance of them being able to, do it again,
Because I know there are certain steps. Okay, so when it comes to, like, handguns, I know it's not as, much stuff you have to go through to get a handgun. But when you're going to the realms of an assault rifle, I'm not going to lie, yes, there's, like, hoops and loops that you have to go through just to get an assault rifle. I'm not going to lie. They did, like, tie it down on, like, who can go get an assault rifle. But there's just already so many guns on the street, it's just it's pointless at that point.
And it's so easy to go purchase a gun from a gun show, much easier than it is to go into a store to buy a gun.
Laws give discretion to the police to actually refuse to issue a concealed carry permit. Valid misdemeanor laws basically prevent someone who has been convicted of an interpersonal violence misdemeanor from buying a gun. We found that a combination of all 3 laws reduced firearm homicide rates by 29%. In 2019, it means that 4,200 people would have been saved.
But none of these methods on their own are perfect. And as some states loosen the reins on gun regulation, expanding the research on gun violence could be our most useful tool in reducing it.
Having more consistent data and more long-term sets of data, those things really can help us find solutions.
Most gun owners actually support gun violence prevention laws. Over 90...
I just feel like it's just kind of pointless, because just doing just some research and seeing it being implemented in other countries and seeing how well it works in other countries is just no point. There's no point of talking about it at this point. There's nothing left to say. There's no more research that needs to be done. I know I said that earlier in the video. I mean, we still should, to critique it and have it to the teeth, but at the same time, it's like, we should be past that point by now. After everything that's been going on, we should be past all that.
Oh, for sure. We are long overdue for some transformations when it comes to this shit.
Person of gun owners support universal background checks. They overwhelmingly support violence misdemeanor laws, red flag laws, and really what's interesting is that they don't know that others do. They're influenced by hearing the vocal minority all the time.
We can find ways to keep guns out of the hands of people who shouldn't have them without infringing on the rights of law-abiding gun owners. And that gives us so many ways forward if we work on it together, if we use the science, And if we focus on prevention, this is a problem we can solve.
Alright guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I do have some last thoughts on it. Me personally, how I feel about the whole gun thing is like, I'm very strong on not having guns, period, because once you have a child dying from a gun, it's a statement, and then when you have a child killing a child, is even more of a bold statement. So I just feel like when you can say that and have actual statistics of that, we actually can do statistics of that in America. I just don't want nothing to do with it at that point. Like, that's really bad that we can pull up science on that, children killing children. So yeah, I'm very amped on getting rid of them, to be honest.
I feel like I definitely could live without guns. Like, it's not something that's like, ever interests me to have a bunch of guns. I do feel like as a society, like with how our society is now, we could start taking baby steps to start like cutting down.
Yeah,
I feel like if we did
yeah.
something elevated so fast, do you know how much of an uproar that would cause?
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm not just saying like, oh yeah, let's just go ahead and cut it all out right here, right now, because there are some people out there who genuinely practice gun safety. They do it, all the steps and everything they need to do. They practice everything they need to do. So I give it to those people, but
I feel like it would cause an outrage of like shootings and people trying to like go to war and shit like that, riots and shit. I feel like it would just make all hell break loose if we did that, because in the South we have all these fucking crazy ass people who are like, oh my god, if somebody tries to take my gun away from me, I'm going to war and all that shit. Like, I feel like those people need their guns like seized and taken and locked away forever. But
and even then, like, that just makes me want to get rid of guns even more. Like, for people even wanting to go to war just because they want to keep your guns. Like, think about it. Genuinely think about it. Like, if we're living in a higher society like we claim to be, what is the point of having guns? The only people who should have guns are military personnel and peace officer, or aka the police officer. So I mean, I don't know, I just don't feel like we need them as people, you know what I mean? Like, any problem that you have, and I'm not saying that that's gonna stop people from doing bad things to other people. You know, you have kidnappers and, the people who do SA and stuff like that, and you need ways to defend yourself, and I do agree with that, but the gun thing is just not the way to go, to me.
yeah, I feel that.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'm Dante.
I'm Elena.
And we'll see you guys next time. We do have more videos coming soon, so stay tuned, guys. Stay tuned.
All right. Bye-bye. Hi, I'm Elena.
I'm Dante.
And we're reacting to a video by ABC News called Gun Violence, an American Epidemic.
You gonna finish?
It would significantly shut.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. More videos are coming soon. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I said that twice. Let me do that again. I'm sorry, I can't do that. Yeah. I know it's really immature of me, but that's kind of funny.
The Dickey Amendment.
The Dickey Amendment. That's something to think about. I call forth the Dickey Amendment. Imagine saying that in court.
The Dickey.
I'm calling on the Dickey Amendment.
I was saying something, but my brain went.